Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all learned this truth from the well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude, until I say Shalom. Come to you back with another lesson through the Spirit. And I'm going to entitle this one, The Pride on These People, what we brought down in an instant. Because these people out here, especially these Americans, these Babylonians, are very prideful. You know, they have a very haughty spirit, ultimately because they live here in the land of America, which is Babylon the Great. And they grew up, they were made to believe, they learned, they were indoctrined from up in elementary up to these colleges and universities. They were made to think that America is the greatest nation upon the planet Earth. That it's number one in IQ, you know, the intelligence quotient, the economy, its military. But all these ranks that America holds on the world is clearly declining, from its economy to the morality, the moral on these people. You know, the economy is completely tanking with all these different tariffs going on, inflation at an all-time high. You know, the military is getting weak. It's been stretched out through then, but somehow these Americans still take pride in living here, from working these 9-to-5s, these jobs, these careers, going to college for however amount of years, getting a degree, you know, getting a mortgage, you know, getting a wife, marrying, having kids. These are all things that these Americans take pride in. You know, ultimately because in their mind they think that America is never going to be destroyed, that it's never going to be brought down, that this place is going to continue on forever. That's why they established that mindset that they're here for, you know, for forever, that they're going to be here for a long time. That's why they're building up their 401ks, you know, saving up for college so their kids can attend, and all sorts of manners of madness that don't, especially our people, the nation of Israel, the 2/3 that comprise of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and Israelite foreigners. They may look like the heathens, but ultimately their lineage goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You know, our people, the 2/3, they're very proud. They're very proud because ultimately they got in crumbs off of Esau, Edom, self-proclaimed white man. You know, especially these celebrities, these rappers, these ball players. You know, they've gotten some crumbs off of the so-called white man's table. You know, they might have got some millions. You know, a lot of Jake got billions, like Diddy, Oprah, Kanye West. But just as fast as those riches were given, they could also be taken away in that same moment. Because we all seen an example like Kanye West. You know, when he went up against the small hats, the small hats, the fake people in the land over there, they took his wealth away. They took his Adidas deal. You know, Diddy. Now he's being locked up, you know, for scandals and grape allegations and all sorts of madness. That shows you how fast this devil Esau Edom turns on you and takes away all those riches that you so-called earned. You know, and it's ultimately Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai that put it upon the spirit of this devil, you know, to take those riches. You know, ultimately because it's Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai that gives us the riches and takes them away. You know, that's ultimately why all these celebrities are losing their riches right now, because that prideful state that they've been in all these past decades is coming down, is crashing down, because just like America is crashing down, the pride on these people is dropping as well, because ultimately these people take pride in their money and their possessions and all the material things that don't really matter, that is all going to be done away with very soon. This is Sirach chapter 10 and verse 9. Why is earth and ashes proud? There is not a more wicked thing than a covetous man, for such one setteth his own soul to sell, because while he liveth he casteth away his vows, That's right, earth and ashes. Why are people up on the earth proud? You're immortal. You gotta die. You gotta shit, eat, sleep, go through infirmities. But yet these people are still pride, especially here in America. They think that they can't die. They're constantly out here tempting the Lord, thinking that they don't have to listen to Yahweh Shemel Shai, our people, the nation of Israel. And these heathens too. These heathens are very prideful, especially the nation of Esau, Edom. Constantly going around the nations, taking their natural resources and not giving them a cut. Jake is out here selling drugs, being covetous. The northern kingdom is down there in Mexico and Southern America, trafficking drugs, trafficking whatever it may be, murdering each other, murdering your neighbor, which is your fellow Israelite. But these 2/3, they don't get that. They don't think that they're gonna have to pay for all the actions that they made in this lifetime. They think that they're gonna get away with it, especially because they haven't been judged yet. They think because they haven't been judged that who they ignorantly call God or Jesus Christ isn't gonna judge them. But they're just building up that tab, that iniquity, ultimately, so Yahweh Shemel Shai can come at them very hard. Because the higher you are, the bigger you are, the harder you fall. And that's going to be a lot of case for these 2/3 of the nation of Israel and these damn heathens, especially here in America. This is the place that hasn't been touched. This is the virgin, the land that hasn't been touched by major wars, by missiles. But that's all coming to end very soon. And all that pride that these people have built up over the years is going to come shooting down in an instant. This is Galatians chapter 6 and verse 3. For if a man think himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceived himself. And that's majority of the people here in America and throughout the four corners of the earth, especially here in Babylon the Great. These Americans, these Babylonians, they're very prideful, because ultimately they know that the USA is the world power. But that's shifting. You got China on the rise, you got Russia on the rise, and all these different nations that are coming against America because they see that America is weakening. They see that this place is falling. The dollar is being done away with. All the nations aren't dealing with the dollar like that anymore. They're forming their own currency, and yet these people are still prideful. They still think that all that wealth that they've amounted over the years, all the assets, whatever it may be, that they've accumulated, through deceit, through unrighteous dealings, that they're really something. But ultimately, it was given unto them by Yahweh Shemel Shai for a stumbling block. So when that charagma, that MOTB, written about in Revelation 13 and verse 16 gets made presented, when it gets made mandatory, they're gonna go out there and take it, just to so-called get all those riches that they've gotten on this side. But ultimately, it's a stumbling block so they could be destroyed. So that pride that they built up, is gonna so-called come back, because all those riches that they've built up, when that great reset takes place, they're gonna lose it in an instant, and they're gonna be crying out to Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man, for a solution. And he's gonna offer them that solution, that form of salvation, when it's gonna be that micro C-hip, that charagma, that MOTB. This is Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 18. Pride go before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. That's right. Yahweh Shemel Shai is hardening 2/3 of the nation of Israel's hearts, their minds, and these heathens' minds. Ultimately, so they think, that they're not going to be judged, that they're going to get away with all their wickedness. But ultimately, Yahweh Shemel Shai is just letting them build up their pride more and more and more. So when they get struck down, when they get judged, when they get put to death, when they get all their riches taken away, then they're gonna be crying out. Then they're gonna want to repent, the nation of Israel. But it's gonna be too late. When it was time to humble down and get this truth, humble yourself down, deny yourself. Nah, you got more prideful. You were scoffing and mocking at the prophets. You were mocking and scoffing at Yahweh Shemel Shai's message. So that pride is gonna be a bitch. It's gonna sting. This is Sirach chapter 10 and verse 18. Pride was not made for men, nor furious anger for them that are not born of a woman. And all men, all women, we're all born of women. So, pride isn't made for men. We're not meant to be proud, because ultimately we were created by Yahweh Shem Shai. So how is a creation going to be prideful coming against its creator, which is 2/3 of the nation of Israel? They love coming up against Yahweh Shem Shai. They love, being rebellious to Yahweh Shem Shai. Constantly asking, well, why did you make this like that? Why did you make that like that? Just constantly being prideful, not considering that Yahweh Shem Shai made everything to be in order, but everything's clearly out of order, especially 2/3 of the nation of Israel, and these heathens. This is Psalms 34 and verse 18. The Lord Yahweh Shem Shai is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. And that's right. Yahweh Shem Shai is only going to be close to those who are contrite, broken, have humbled down. And that's only going to be the elect, us are the hopeful elect, the 1/3, starting with the 144,000, and the large multitude, the believers, the followers, the helps. Lord willing, we can be a part of that number. Those are the ones who are going to be contrite and broken, because we know that we don't got it. We know that we're under captivity. We're in slavery. We have to be subject under payments. We have to go to the enemy for one all things. We're drinking polluted water. We're breathing polluted air. We're eating GMO foods. We have the women over us. We have the heathen over us. How can we be prideful like that? Even if we have a so-called good paying job, we may have a house, a couple cars, a wife and kids. We still can't be proud, because ultimately all that was given by Yahweh Shem Shai. We're in the condition we're in now because we sinned against Yahweh Shem Shai. So if anything, we're not meant to be prideful. We're meant to humble down and accept our punishment, because we sinned against Yahweh Shem Shai. And 2/3 of the nation of Israel, they're not in that spirit. They're not in that spirit of being humble, being broken, being contrite. No, instead, they're being more rebellious. They're rebelling more and more and more each day. But that's why us are the hopeful elect. We're humbling ourselves right now to Lord, Lord willing, receive mercy, because we need mercy. We know that we need mercy from Yahweh Shem Shai. All the upcoming calamities, all the upcoming destruction, death, pestilences, plagues that are about to hit upon the planet Earth. But 2/3 of the nation of Israel, they don't believe that that's going to happen. That's why they're still out here being prideful, constantly tempting the Lord, going off, committing sin on top of sin, willingly. A lot of them knowing that they're Israelites, they're still out here bullshitting, playing around. This is 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 6. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of Yahweh Shem Shai, that he may exalt you in due time. And that's right. We're humbling ourselves right now, because we're not meant to exalt ourselves, because ultimately this truth, this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding was given unto us as a gift. It wasn't given to us because of how hard we worked. No, ultimately it was given unto us by Yahweh Shem Shai. The Lord willing, we endure to the end and we get delivered out of here. And that's when we'll get exalted, when we receive those crowns. But we don't know if we're at that number yet. But a lot of Israelites out here, a lot of 2/3, in these other camps that are pushing false doctrine, they're in that very prideful and haughty spirit, especially the camp leaders in these false prophet camps. They're on pushing prophecy. They're on breaking the scriptures down, not warning their congregation of the things that are about to come upon the planet Earth. They're in a very haughty and prideful spirit right now. But Yahweh Shem Shai is going to put a stop to that very soon. He's going to bring all those haughty looks, that prideful spirit down in an instant. He's going to shoot all that prideful behavior down very soon. He's going to humble these 2/3, the women, the black women, the Latina women, the Native American women. The 2/3 are just very prideful right now, but ultimately Yahweh Shem Shai is putting a stop to that now. You can see it by the way of the economy's collapsing. You got these women crying out that they need a man, they need help, that they need a partner, a boyfriend, a husband. But ultimately, when the prophets were out there telling our people to repent, to turn back to Yahweh Shem Shai and hide under the shadows of the Almighty, they were out there playing around. thinking that all the things that the prophets were saying were never going to come to pass, but now they're happening. They're passing all these different laws, ending the welfare system, the Section 8, the food stamps. All those vintage, all those dainties are getting taken away, and now that pride is being brought down. Of the 2/3 of the nation of Israel. This is Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 11. The lofty looks of men shall be humbled. That's right. You can tell how prideful, how arrogant someone is by their looks. And a lot of these 2/3 out here, these heathens, they have that very prideful countenance, thinking that their shit don't stink, thinking that, they're not in slavery. Especially 2/3 of the nation of Israel, they think that they're in their heaven. They got their constellation on this side. And the haughtiness of man shall be bowed down, and the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Shai alone shall be exalted in that day. That's right. 2/3 of the nation of Israel and these heathens, they're very prideful, they're very haughty. They think that they're never going to be touched, that they're never going to be judged because they've been sinning willfully, getting away with iniquity. And this is why they're very prideful, because they think that they're not going to be judged, especially on this side. A lot of them think that they're going to get away with all their wickedness. But no, this is the generation where Yahweh Shai is going to return and he's going to deliver his elect. And those are the ones who we should be praising, is Yahweh Bashmi Shai, not ourselves, because we know that we don't got it. We're in these chains of darkness. We're in this flesh, constantly sinning, going off. How can we be prideful? This is verse 12. For the day of the Lord, Yahweh Bashmi Shai of hosts, shall be upon everyone that is proud and lofty, and up everyone that is lifted up, and he shall be brought down low. Right now, the most proudful nation right now is the Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white people, especially the wicked elite. In their minds, they think that they're going to get away with their N to the W to the O system. Their new system is going to be ran by the micro C-hip. All that prideful haughtiness, thinking that they're not going to be judged, that they're going to get away with it, that they're going to fill their belly. That's when Yahweh Bashmi Shai is going to put a stop to it. He's going to rain that great wrath on them, rain those missiles on these 2/3 here in America, and eventually those wicked elite, that think they got away and are hiding in their bunkers. That's when Yahweh Bashmi Shai is going to send his man to pull their asses out, and they're going to have to go into slavery. All that pride from the 2/3 of the nation of Israel to these damn wicked ass elite, these Rothschilds, Rockefellers, whatever it may be, is going to be brought down in an instant. But that's pretty much the point. I pray this is edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all learned this truth from the well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the rest of the 130.